We're dealing with the segment All Things Real Estate. Today we're talking about estate planning and real estate ownership and how they go hand in hand and how many people make costly mistakes that can lead to legal complications, financial losses, and of course family disputes. And some family disputes turn ugly, yeah? On All Things Real Estate today, we're inviting managing attorney at Law Boss Attorneys at Law, SOPHIA Bryan, to talk about some of the mistakes to avoid in estate planning and real estate. Good morning, Sophia.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm quite well, thank you.
We've had several conversations on this program about how deadly this battle over deadlift can be.
Oh my God, yes it is. And we don't have to do nothing more than a basic Google search to see how many cases we've had. In fact, I've even had a client that lost a finger due to a issue with family over deadlift land.
It's ridiculous. And I remain shocked, Sophia, because in early 2024, we did an interview with the commanding officer in St. Anne, SSP Dwight Powell, who told us that in 2023 in St. Anne, 80% of the homicides recorded in the parish were disputes over land among family members.
Wow.
Ridiculous.
I need to share that statistic in my next seminar.
You need to.
I didn't realize it was that severe.
Very, very bad. Very, very bad. It's all right. Tell me a little bit more, of course, before we get into the substantive discussion about Law Boss Attorneys at Law.
Yes, so we are an estate planning and conveyancing firm. The mission of the firm is to help expats who have a desire to build and preserve their legacy through real estate and estate planning. And our desire is to reach more persons who are in the diaspora and even non-Jamaicans who want to do business here and want a legal expert by their side. One of the things that sets us apart is the fact that we have a hybrid office. Mm-hmm. So we've already worked out the logistics of how to serve clients that are overseas. In fact, most of my clients are persons who live in the United States, Canada, or England. Many of them I've never even met before. And so we know what is required of us to service that kind of market.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. So you say hybrid office. Your physical office is where?
We have the physical offices in Kingston. But we have we're not bounded by geography. Once you're doing matters that apply to the Jamaican jurisdiction, we're in a position to help you.
So tell me where in Kingston, man.
60 Knutsford Boulevard. Yeah. We're at the Panjam building. Incidentally, I had a walk-in and he said he came because it was on Knutsford Boulevard. He was from the US and he knew Knutsford Boulevard.
There you go.
I was so shocked. I'm like, people doing walk-ins in New Kingston.
There you go.
But it happens.
It happens. All right. What are the biggest, or some of them at least, biggest mistakes people make when passing down real estate, Sophia?
All right. So a huge mistake is that persons think that everybody will just do the right thing. More mature persons, the idea that if you prepare a will or you prepare any type of instrument to indicate who the applicable persons will be when that time comes, you're calling down dead on yourself, mm-hmm. right? And so there's no planning. There may be verbal conversations that are had, but there's nothing to actually prove that these discussions were had and that everybody understood what was in the mind of the estate owner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's a very interesting point you raised there, because if you plan, people say, Lord God, don't you plan for dead?
Right, exactly. And then there's this discomfort about showing favoritism, especially if it's a big family.
Yes.
So persons don't want to, say that, well, I don't want to do this, and then X person feels that. But I said to persons, when you're doing estate documents, it doesn't have to be by persons that you know personally. That's why you have trusted professionals, you have attorneys, you even have village lawyers that sometimes intervene to kind of be in the middle so that you don't have to share the information with everybody about what's in those documents.
All right, so scenario now, Sophia. So in, oh God, I don't want to say Catadupa and St. James. People must think something I take sick, but I always use them as example. So in Rosemount, in St. Catherine then, a patriarch is not feeling so hot, and him say, all right, just in case the worst happens, I want to draft up something for my 17 children, because he have enough land and he has some vehicles and he has a farm and he has all of this. Then him say, chum about it, because the big one them will know that if the worst happens, them to take care of the deco on them, and they are kind, good-hearted people based on what I know, and I raise them well. So if the worst happens, they will take care of the others. You are advising them. Why would you advise them that, look, this approach of not drafting a document, of leaving it up to people's good graces is a mistake? What would you point out to them as a folly in their way of thinking?
All right. So interestingly, with rural land, a lot of rural land is unregistered land. So meaning there's no title available. However, we can trace the nexus of, how did this person come about owning the land? It takes money to get the land registered. And if the family wants to have any use for the land, whether it's to secure assets, whether it's to get a loan, whether probably even to do some construction, a title needs to be pursued. And the only way the family is going to be in a position to do that is if there's document to show this was the owner and he or she has given a particular person to sort things out, or they are the owner whenever that person passes on. So even from like a financial, monetary standpoint, if you want to do any development and you want to leave it up to your children, you can't do that. They can't do that without any documentation to prove that, oh, my father actually owned it. He's not making it up, kind of a thing.
Right. So the first piece of advice is to listen. You need to severe the land.
Yeah.
There was a survey, Sophia. You have a severe the piece of land. So severe the land, get the title, and
Yes,
move from
right,
there.
right. So on the note of severing the land, there's a difference between a survey ID report
Yes.
and a pre-check plan. And so it's a rookie mistake where persons will just pay for a survey ID report when what required was a pre-check plan. The costing is different and the steps are different. And sometimes if you don't explicitly say to the surveyor, this is what I intend to do, again, Jamaicans very secretive, then you might end up wasting money. And so that's why it's important to even have a consultation with an attorney. Sometimes you'll get solid advice that you can use to even act on your own volition if you take the time and invest some money to speak with an attorney.
Yes. My producer says the next question is, what legal oversights cause issues when inheriting property?
The major oversight is having the adequate documentation, of course, and there's nothing to show ownership. One of the things that I see come across my desk a lot of the times is that people have several names. So in Jamaica, one person can have 5 names. And so sometimes the name that is on the title may not match the name that's on the person's ID or their birth certificate or even their passport. And so how do you reconcile who is the true owner? And so even just that little thing to say, okay, John Brown is actually John Brown Jr., etc. And so that's why something like a will is important. And for people that have a more vast estate, then you can look into preparing something like a trust. But I always joke and say, in order to have a trust, you need to trust people. Again, Jamaica, we have an issue with trust.
Yes.
So you have to appoint somebody who you think is responsible and can take on managing the affairs of your estate. You want somebody that's not going to be easily bullied, or they're not going to be scared to advocate for the best interest of the persons who are the beneficiaries of the estate.
Is gifting property before death a good idea?
Yes and no, it depends. It depends on who you're gifting it to and what stage in life you are at. So if you're somebody that is probably near retirement and you know that you need somewhere to live, you don't want to gift your land to your child, and that child is a thriving entrepreneur and maybe want to use your house as collateral to get a loan, then you might end up being homeless. Or if you and the child have a falling out and their name is on the title, they may end up kicking you off your own land because, they're the title owner. And so people have to think very carefully about that. What I suggest, If you are not in a position to manage the affairs of your land or your home, maybe you can consider giving someone a power of attorney. A power of attorney can be general or it can be specific. In our jurisdiction, once it has to do with any kind of asset, whether it's a car, a house, you have to speak specifically to that asset. So, and you can limit what the person can do. So perhaps, if you know that you need to keep up with your taxes, if you want to do some type of renovation, or you know that illness is on the horizon, you may want to do a power of attorney rather than outrightly transferring the asset to somebody else.
How do families accidentally lose properties and how can this be prevented?
So from my client base, Jamaicans who are overseas and expats, a lot of persons move away for a better life. Air quotes better life, because what life is better than Jamaican life?
There you go. There you go.
Right, so they leave, and the land is just left open and abandoned. And there's somebody lurking in the woods who just watching and observing. Notice that nobody comes to trim the lawns. There's no fence. It may even be a remote area, but it's good land. And so because they're overseas, they don't think about it. They just assume that, 10 years from now when I'm ready to retire, I will come back and it will just be there. And you may come back and see a building on your land. I know of instances where persons would have established maybe lease agreements with institutions. Lease agreements can go up to 100 years. And so the person that maybe signed the lease agreement, they're long gone, family overseas, but in the back of their minds, the land is still there. Then you might come back and see a structure on the building.
One should be like 4-bedroom.
Right. Right? We laugh, but it happens. Yes. It happens. And there are people that actually make a business out of doing things like these. And so you can't just abandon your land. You can't just go away and think that it's just going to be there. You need to at least do a few things to show that you are still in possession of the property.
People listening to you this morning, Sophia, how can they reach you for more information and consultation? So
I have a free real estate checklist that people can get. You can send me a WhatsApp message or call 876-990-7313, 990-7313, and you can also go to thelawbossfirm.com. You can learn about me and the practice areas, and you can also call the numbers that are listed on our website.
Yes, and remember, it's thelawboss.com. So don't go Google and type in law boss. I'll say, but what about credit club here for the radio?
Thelawbossfirm.com.
The law boss, there you go.
Yeah,
and you hear our number 990. That means a long time chef said that I know, and I just know. Give us the number again.
990-7313.
Excellent. Thank you this morning, Sophia.
Thank you so much.
She's the managing attorney at Law Boss Attorneys at Law, and she will be more than happy to assist you with your estate planning and your real estate issues. All right, that's it for all things real estate this morning. Thank you, Sophia.
Thank you.
All right.